I'm a former atheist. I grew up going to church, but I did not grow up in a Christian household. It was very apparent that Sunday mornings was for grandma. Outside of that 1 hour and a half, there was nothing faith-based about the household I grew up in. And so church just became an activity. There was no purpose to it. And then about 7th, 8th grade, we just stopped going to church altogether. And by the time I was in high school, I came to a belief that even if there is a God, there's no point in it. He doesn't care. So I became fairly agnostic and started to only worry about what Jeremy wanted. After high school, joined the Marine Corps. Did a couple deployments and tours overseas and saw the absolute worst that humanity had to offer. Did the absolute worst of what humanity had to offer. And that then just solidified it for me. There is no God. There sure as heck isn't a loving God. Because the things that I had to see and do couldn't possibly exist in a universe with a God that was pure love and all the things that I thought God was supposed to be. So after I got out of the military, I lived my life the way that I wanted. I was basically a hedonist. I pursued whatever desires I wanted. That led to alcoholism, unabashed pursuit of women, just whatever desires I wanted, I was going to try to fulfill. And since there was nothing out there, I had nothing to be shameful about. I had no reason to be worried about what I was doing with my life because it was just this temporary thing and then it was over. Early 2010, I was dating a young lady and it was ending badly. During the ending of our relationship, we both ended up getting to spend a night in Hays County detention. Is not a place I would recommend for your weekend vacations. I ended up having to go through an eviction process. Things just went really bad, and I had not yet hit bottom. I thought I was an alcoholic leading into that. Then I learned what alcoholism truly is. I became a blackout drunk. I would wake up in the morning with no memory of ever leaving the bar. I would close the bar out and still make it to work at 7 a.m. that morning. I had a partner at work that protected me. I would show up to work still drunk and he would just send me to bed. And while I'm grateful now, I should have been fired. I was a terrible employee, terrible paramedic, and I was putting people's lives in danger. A little later that year, I reconnected with this young woman who I had met previously through my sister. I asked her out on a date. She agreed. We went on a second date. And then when I asked her for a third date, she said, "We can't date because you're not someone I have the potential to marry, and there's no point in wasting either of ours time." So started tagging along to all the things that she did. I wanted to hang out with her one morning for when I got off work and asked her if we could go have breakfast. She's like, "Well, I'm going to go run 7 miles with friends and then we'll go have breakfast." So I went and did that. I almost died. And then asked her out to dinner. She's like, "Well, I can't do dinner, but on Tuesdays, I go hang out with this group of friends at someone's house. We always have dinner there, and it's a Bible study. I was like, there's food, so I'll go. And that actually was the first time I had ever met a real Christian. I saw Christians doing the stuff that they actually said to do in the Bible. They cared deeply for each other. They openly shared about their sins and their shortcomings and asked for prayer and then prayed for each other. It wasn't that the stuff I'd normally seen was like, oh yeah, we'll pray for you, and then just, that's the end of it. No, they genuinely loved each other, and it was weird, but they were nice, and there was food, and there was one really pretty girl. So I kept going. My desires to spend more and more time with this woman led me to starting to come to church with her on Sunday mornings. I showed up with the attitude of, these people are fools. They're all very intelligent people, but somehow they're dumb enough to believe this. And they were all very nice. They were very polite to me, very welcoming of me, but I thought they were fools. This one particular Sunday, I'd missed the prior Sunday, and I came in this Sunday morning, and John Berryhill was filling in for our normal teacher, and he didn't know where we were in our little study guide, so he just picked one. Turns out it was the lesson that they had just done the week before, but I missed it. So I was the only one in the room that it was new for. And we're going through, and I'm, going along in the book, looking over Claire's shoulder, and then he pauses briefly as he says a verse. John 6:69, to believe and know that I am the Lord. And he just paused briefly to explain the importance of the order of those two words, to believe and know. That if we accept the fact that God is real and that we place our faith in that, then he will reveal himself to us. And I said, well, that kind of makes sense. I can understand that if I refuse to accept that this is real, then I can't know it, because I'm just going to reject it, and I'm not going to accept any information or evidence to the contrary of what I already believe. So I was like, all right, I can get down with that. And then that Sunday, Craig Taylor's message was about the prodigal son. I knew that story. I grew up going to church. Kid wished his dad dead, wanted his stuff, got poor, went back, dad accepted him, But it just hit different. And by the end of that service, I had been changed. I don't know what happened. I didn't want it. I showed up to church that Sunday morning with the exact same attitude. These very nice and accepting fools believe in this weird, hokey stuff, but I didn't. And then at the end of that service, I just bowed my head down and was like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm in. Instantaneously, my life was completely changed. I lost the desire to drink. I developed this insatiable hunger to read the Gospels, to read all of Scripture. I was incredibly fortunate to have access to that young woman's father, who is a brilliant mind, was able to answer all of my questions from a scientific perspective plus a faith perspective, and those were how I was struggling. I couldn't, in my mind, see how they could fit and connect, because I'd always been taught that faith and science were in opposition to each other. There was no complementarianism there. But then he was much smarter than me, and so he could wrestle with me on it and allowed me to express my doubt. And through that struggle with him and the gentleness and patience of Claire, I grew to an absolutely unshakable foundation of faith that I had been radically changed against my will, that the rest of my life was going to be devoted to following, worshiping God, and teaching my future children about who he is and how much he loves us. And my life has been so incredibly changed ever since that day. My name is Jeremy Davis, and this is my story with God.